welcome to MoneyBoyTV.com. Mr. Countryman, we're glad to have you here. Thank you for taking the time out and just doing a brief interview with us. I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions, and I would love for you to give me the God honest truth.
Okay.
So first, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a product of South Columbus. I grew up off of Casita Road. When we first moved here in '68, my father was stationed in Fort Benning. I was born in Plains, Georgia. We moved here in '68, and so we lived off of Casita Road in Alpine apartments. About 2 years later, we moved over to Swan Street, and so I went to Casita Road Elementary School, Southern Junior High School, which is no longer there, and a proud graduate of Baker High School. And so I love Columbus. I never left Columbus longer than a long period of time, and but I love it, and I love the job that I do. I love serving people. My background is public service, so I've been in public safety for the past 29 years. At the end of this year, it'll be 30 years, and mostly, well, not mostly, but all in law enforcement. So that's been what I've been doing for almost 3 decades now.
Oh, wow. Did you always want to be a sheriff?
Well, I knew that I wanted to be in law enforcement when I was in the 6th grade. That's when I was first introduced to the junior police program. And so I loved listening to the jingling of the police uniform. Then the officer was Officer Murphy at the time, and I just knew that ever since then that it was something about that uniform and hearing that jingle of the gun belt, the patent leather shoes, and the level of professionalism that I knew that it was something about that connected me to being an officer.
Okay. What makes you the most qualified candidate as sheriff?
Well, if you look at my track record, my experience, I'm the only one that is running for office that has occupied an office for more than one term. This is my 4th term. And so I've been marshal for going on 16 years. Some of the candidates have been running for marshal for the past 12 and 16 years. There's a difference in running for an office versus occupying an office. When you occupy the office, you understand the budget, you understand the management, you understand the people, you understand different with the various personalities and within your own agency, city government, and you understand what public service really is, truly is. And so that's something that I take very, very seriously. But being in office for 16 years, I've had a chance to hone in on my management skills, on training, on every issue that you can think of. Being in an elected office, 16 years is a lot of experience.
Yes. What are your goals or mission for Columbus once elected as sheriff?
Well, what I want to see a stronger Columbus. But there are so many aspects of that we have to be able to work with the whole community in order for us to have a strong community. By state statute, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement official of the county. The sheriff is the keeper of the peace of the county. And so what I want to see is a peaceful county. And so, but being a peaceful county means that it starts one person at a time, one house at a time, one child at a time, and it starts within our agency. And so what I want to see is the sheriff's office be a people agency that can cover every aspect of our community. But I think it's vitally important that we see a sheriff that has reach into the community. And so my goal and my mission is to have reach into the community to where I can work with the white collar, blue collar, those with no collar, the gang community, every community that is out there, every segment of our society, the sheriff's office needs to be an integral part of. Because there are so many things that a sheriff can do. Because if we can keep, if we can motivate people on the outside to not want to come on the inside, I think that is a great thing. And I want to, as marshal, I've done a lot of mentoring. We have a junior marshal program. which we've had a chance to mentor 1,900 middle school students with a 100% success rate.
Wow.
And that's with a smaller agency. That's with 1 or 2 people working. We have all 13 middle schools. This program is endorsed by the Muskogee County School District. It's a 2-year program. And I think that if we increase the number, that we can make a greater impact. And so us making the impact, a greater impact, means that we can help reduce crime just through that. We want to be active in the community. My mission and goal is to be active in the community. I want to have what's called SAL, which is Sheriff Athletic League. We want to be able to go into the community and to reach young kids through athletics, because our young kids, our young men and young women need a way of exhaling. That there are not a lot of things in Columbus for them to do. And so athletics is one way of us doing that. And having the personnel of over 400 people, you can have volunteers that would love to get out here and work with the community, whether if you're working in the jail division, the court division, the fugitive division, admin division, whatever division you are working in, there are a lot of men and women that want to be active in our community. And so what we want to do is find out who those people are, find out what areas of the community that we can go in and work with those communities. My goal and mission is also to want to go in and to work with the most challenging neighborhoods, to give them options, because I hate to see South Columbus in certain parts the way it is, because I'm a proud product of South Columbus. I want to be able to go in and to do my part, but I want to be able to go in and partner with these neighborhoods, going in and speaking with the people that run that block or run that neighborhood, the big mama of that neighborhood, and get commitments from them that whoever runs that block, and I want to find out who really runs it, and ask them, can you promise me that for 2-3 weeks that there will be no gun violence on this block? Find out who that gang member is that runs this block. Go and get him to commit to doing the same thing. Go and find out who that big mama is that run the neighborhood. See if you can get kids that can help me to keep this, that can help them to keep the block clean.
So really it's building trust among the community?
Relationships, trust, and giving them options.
You better.
Because no one is giving the community options. And when we can furnish them trash bags that can go in, and they can go in on a Saturday and keep this block clean. But when they keep the block clean, we want to reward them. We want to let the public know that look at what has happened in this neighborhood. Allow them to be proud of where they live. And so I think that once we can start doing that, instilling pride, but if we can do that, then the next neighborhood will say, oh, we can do better than that. So everybody loves a challenge. And so if you make it fun to challenge them, and if you let all of Columbus see that maybe the mayor can come out and can make some comments about this, because everybody loves a challenge, but everyone should be able to live in a safe environment. And when you can work those relationships, I believe in community policing, community-oriented policing, problem-oriented policing, that wherever the problems are, that's where we go, but we don't have to always go in a uniform. Sometimes whatever the community looks like, that's how we go. And so we have to meet people where they are, but we have to have someone that has the knowledge and the reach and the experience and the trust that can go in and make these things happen. Over the 16 years, I've built a lot of relationships that I think that I can, work with and build those relationships.
Okay. Since you have been campaigning, what have been some of your challenges?
Well, with COVID-19, that interrupted a lot of ways that we were effectively campaigning, going out and knocking on doors, making sure that we could get our message out. That was a really key issue, but the campaign has not slowed down, because what has happened is that when we made that announcement that we were suspending our door-to-door campaign, then social media picked up. We're in the 21st century, so the campaign really did not slow down. The momentum has always been there. The inbox messages for campaign signs and literature is stronger than ever. This is not just a moment. This is a movement, and so there are a lot of people that are invested, that are involved, that are excited, and that are inciting other people to go out and to vote for Greg Countryman, because I'm the best candidate for the job, and I'm the right countryman for the job. And it's not a matter of arrogance, but it's a matter of experience. And I've earned this over the years, working on my training, my education, and being patient and being faithful. And so I've been Marshall for 16 years. And so it's time for me to bring something to the sheriff's office, because I have something to offer. And what I want to do is be able to partner with other people and bring other people to the table. Because we have a lot of issues in our community, but a lot of the solutions are in our community, and they can be fixed through our community, but our community has a lot of genius. And so that means that we have to have people to sit at the table to tell us not what we want to hear, but what we need, because everybody brings something to the community. And when we realize that our community is a multicultural community, that means that we need Hispanic people sitting at the table. We need black people. We need young people. We need millennials. We need boomers. We need everybody, because we need to make sure that our community is working at every cylinder. We need to make sure that we can connect and that we have reach to everybody in the community. I don't care if a person has tattoos from the head to the toes. We need to be able to have reach and influence to go in and talk with that young man or that young woman, because that is still a human being that brings something to the table. And so it's all about relationships. It's all about relationship.
I have another question for you, Mr. Countryman.
Okay.
Who or what has motivated you to keep pushing during this campaign?
I think that when I think about my mother and my father, recently lost my father to cancer a couple of weeks
Sorry to hear
ago. Thank you. And I think about the values that my mother and father instilled in me, and I was really hoping that my father would have just held on a little longer for him to actually see the end result. But I know that he's with me in my heart, and so everything that I'm doing now, I'm dedicating this to my father, and so that's my push right now. That's my drive. When I look in the mirror, I look so much like my dad. I see my dad, and so this is for him. So that's my push. My motivation is for every generation. It's for those that have come before me, whose shoulders I stand on, because there were other warriors that blazed the trail, that made sure that I would have this opportunity to run for this office. I'm doing this for my family, my children, to make sure that they can see their dad go to work, to make sure that they can see they see the things that their dad did in the community to impact the community. I'm doing this for the younger generation so that they can aspire to do things greater than be sheriff, that they can be governor, that they can one day run for president, because this is a historical moment, especially in the African American community, because we've never had an African American sheriff, and the sheriff's office has been in existence since 1827. I can't begin to tell you the excitement that I can feel. It is so thick in the community, not just in the African American community, but in the whole community of Columbus, Georgia, because everybody has a piece of this. Whether if it's financially, whether if it's through prayer, or whether if it's somebody just patting you on the back, but people are expecting Greg Countryman to win this race because Greg Countryman has earned it. They've seen the battle scars. They've seen the things that I've had to face for the past 16 years in government. And when you are in the eye of the storm for 16 years, that's what makes me a better candidate. It's easy to judge people on the outside, but when you're in the eye of the storm and you come out of it, and the way that you went in is the way that God brings you out of it. And one thing that I've learned that sometimes that God will bring you to the fire just to get you through the fire. But you got to be willing to hurl yourself into it. I think about the story of the three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is that they didn't bow down to what to what one of the government leaders wanted them to do, but they knew that through their faith that they had to be faithful and believe in God. But they were willing to hurl themselves even into the fire when the fire got hot. And so one thing that I've learned over the course of my 16 years is to be willing to hurl yourself into the fire. And I would challenge anyone that wants to be a true leader to ask themselves, are you willing to go there? Because a lot of us are not willing to go there. We want to be there, but we don't want to go there. And so the battle scars, the battle wounds that I have are the ones that God has left on me. Those thorns that he's left in me reminds me that he was there for me to get me through the storms, to get me through whatever it is that I've gone through. And that's why I'm so faithful to the Lord and I'm so open about my faith, because I know that if it had not been for the Lord, that I would not be where I am. I'm not supposed to be sitting here today because I never thought that I would be sitting here. That's why I run for this seat. That's why I go into the community, because when I graduated high school with a learning disability, a really bad stuttering problem, couldn't enter college until I was 26 because I had problems reading, writing, comprehending. But through my faith, and God started to peel off all of those layers because of faith. And that's why I know that this is my season and this is our moment. And so when God opens up a door, we have to be faithful and obedient enough to know that he opened up that door. But if he brought you to it, you got to be faithful enough to know that he's going to take you through it. And so that's why I stand here and I sit here today to speak with you, because I want everybody to see this, not as Greg Countryman, but I want you to see this as God's hand moving. Because this is not just a moment, this is going to be a movement. And so I want the younger people to watch this, because they need to watch how God will operate in this season. And so I think that this is a moment for not only myself, but this is a moment for God to be glorified in the end.
Well, I can honestly say you deserve it, Mr. Countryman.
Praise God. Thank you.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
On that note, you are a great leader,
Thank you.
mentor, friend. Can you tell us why the people need to vote?
Well, the people need to vote in this race. Well, not just this race. Let me say that we need to vote, period. Because a lot of people have fought, died, and bled for us to have the right to vote. This election season is going to be a very, very critical race for president on down. That everything that we know in society, in government, takes a vote. Every vote needs to be counted. And we need to vote like there's no tomorrow in this race, because if we want to see change, then vote Greg Countryman for sheriff. If you're good with where things are, I understand. But this race, my children are voting. When we go to the polls, we take our kids with us, because we want even my youngest son to understand the right to vote and the privilege to vote. Even when it's not time to vote for sheriff, even in the off election cycles, where you're voting for governor, where you're voting for mayor, where you're voting for whatever, if it's an ordinance, vote. Because when we can get into practicing of voting, then that's when we can make a difference. But we have to practice. in order to get used to it, because it needs to be something that we desire. When we get hungry, there's a part of our body that causes us to desire food. When it's time to vote, we need to have that same desire to go and vote. But voting in this election is very, very critical. And I would ask that everybody would go out and just exercise their right to vote. But vote for the best candidate that you know is the best candidate, because we can't throw away a vote because you're buddies with someone. This is a vote that is going to make the difference. This vote is going to make the difference.
How can we, as people in Columbus, tackle crime?
Well, I think that first we have to understand that crime and violence is the language. And we have to have someone that can be well versed in the community and understand that whenever someone commits a crime, we need to be able to ask, why are they committing the crime? That for every situation, there has to be a causation to it. And so we have a lot of our young people that are committing crimes because they're acting out. We have a lot of kids that are going through emotional things, that maybe the absence of the father in the household, maybe some mental health challenges, maybe poverty issues, maybe things that are just going on in the household that the kids' capacity just can't handle. And so we don't need to just make it a habit of us just arresting people. I think that when we deal with crime, that we have to look at it holistically. And so I think that if we're going to curb crime or interrupt crime, that we must be willing to look at crime in ways that we've never looked at it before. Because if we can prevent things from happening, that's what we need to be. But when we do that, we have to partner with subject matter experts that are experts in mental health issues, that are, that people that are astute and well enough to where they can counsel kids about their spiritual wellness. Men that were once bad fathers or good fathers that can come in and be a kickstand to these young men in our community. And I think that a lot of times that our young kids don't hear that they are valued, that they're loved, that we believe in them. And those words can impact a child so much, because I know that when I deal with kids over the past 16 years, that all they want is sometimes is just that attention. And sometimes kids will act out. Sometimes men will act out because they're not getting the attention that they need. And so we have to make sure that we don't just get in the habit of looking at the crime, but we try to look at the message behind the crime. And so that's where compassion comes at. And I don't think that I'm not going to be soft on crime, but I will be compassionate about the human aspect of who committed the crime, and to find out and to try to go a little bit deeper than what we see on the surface. Because if you can fix and repair that, then we don't have to worry about that person coming back. Because one of the things when there's a problem is three things that has happened. You got to first recognize that there's a problem. Then you got to have a solution. Then you got to have assurance that if you can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that these things won't happen again. And so what's happening is that the crime is being committed. Now we're going to lock you up. And so when that happens over and over and over again, it's a repeated cycle. The person doesn't get the healing that they need. And so we need to make sure that we look at crime and violence in the 21st century, and to know that it's a language and that we can be able to speak to that language. I'm someone that can do that.
Okay. What movements do the people of Columbus need to be involved in?
I think that the movement of them allowing their voices to be heard. But part of them having a voice means that they have to have something attached to that. And that means that they are voters, because elected officials listen to voters. And I think that when young people, if it's a young group of people, that they need to be one caucus group, to where if it's 30 or 40, let that movement build to a larger number that are registered voters. Because when you can go to elected officials and hold up a voting card, that speaks volumes. And when you can speak to the government, it allows things to yield towards you. And so in those type of movement, because those are things that will open up doors for so many people. It's just being a registered voter. But if you're a registered voter, make sure that you vote in every election. Because when you deal with government, that government needs to know that this is another power base that we have to look at. It may be in this neighborhood, but guess what? We're going to send resources to this neighborhood. If these young men are working on trying to better other young men in the community, then we need to send the resources here. Because these young men, 30 or 40 people, can create a greater movement. Because when you have like minds together that can understand a mission and a goal and a purpose, then that means that while the people may not listen to them, they can still work on the outside to make that movement greater and greater and broader to where they can formulate change themselves. And so when you can have a movement, change can come from the outside that can impact the inside.
Well, thank you, Mr. Countryman, for the interview. You've heard it. The right countryman for the job is Mr. Greg Countryman himself. Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I know the sky is the limit for you. And when you are elected, I know you would do just what you said you would do.
Thank you. And I want to thank Moneyboard TV because of the foresight in doing the polling, to the foresight and the vision for getting involved and bringing this to everyone. Because Moneyboard TV has done a lot in this community. It's a name that we can trust. It's a name that we can respect. And I think that Moneyboard TV has its place in Columbus, Georgia, and beyond Columbus, Georgia. And I just want to say from the depths of my heart that I appreciate Moneyboard TV for all that it does.